Hey everyone, Jason Morgan, editor of Fleet Equipment. Welcome to Fleet Equipment Unscripted. Definitely unscripted again today. We had the Ford Transit 2020 test drive video that we posted recently. I have another video in relation to that. While I was rolling around town, we had the telematics going, tracking all of my data, and I've connected with Travis Hunt, the business development manager for Ford Commercial Solutions, to go over all of that data, right? My driving behavior, where I went, what I did. So I'm in the hot seat, kind of serving as the guinea pig for the driver training position here, kind of putting my money where my mouth is when I talk a lot about these telematic solutions. So we will jump into that, and you can get a look at what the platform tracks and how to take advantage of that, and maybe see how I did while I was driving. So we will start that right now. I love the telematics. We talk about it all the time. Um, and I'm always talking about it kind of obliquely. So it was excited for me to see myself. But when Kristen emailed me and said, "Hey, I see you're in the office today," it hit a little differently when it's you.
Absolutely, it
It's a
does.
little different
It
when they send you your stats. So I just, for our readership, when they're always like, "Well, this guy doesn't have to deal with it. He's not being tracked." I was being tracked, and I get it. But then once I got over it, I knew it was happening. It wasn't a surprise, but the reality is really it does give you pause for a minute.
it does.
You
It
know?
absolutely does. So, like anything, the more you, it's always typically a shock when a company implements something like this with tracking, but over time, that kind of shock fades away. As with anything that involves your privacy, um, the only way that makes it worth it, that you're willing to give up that your privacy and your location and things along those lines, is when the value to the business really drives itself. And it's kind of like Waze. You're giving
Right.
Waze all kinds of information, right? But ultimately, the value that they give back on saving you time and getting you through the headaches of traffic has to be worth it for you to be willing to do that.
Okay. Well, if you're ready, I'm
I'm
I'm,
ready.
I'm
Yeah.
excited and nervous.
Awesome. All right. Let me share my screen here for you so you can take a look. And so certainly along your route, I see a nice little lap here. It looks like with a couple double backs around here. So,
Yep.
but what we do is we capture a large amount of driver behavior data, typically coming off the vehicle, and I populate this um, filter box just so you can kind of get an idea of. We capture, if there was a geofence here, we'd capture going in and out of the geofence, as well as the amount of time that you were in there, the harsh braking events, harsh acceleration events, idling, anytime, of course, that you're moving. And I mentioned earlier, we have two different speeding incidents, one being over a threshold, which you did not exceed, and then of course over the speed limit, which we didn't capture due to the software of the vehicle. So,
Got
um, you know, you're off the hook there,
it.
particularly for any type of speeding that you're done along the way. So you're welcome in advance for that one.
Okay, good. I think
Uh,
I was okay. Honestly, I mean, when it's not your vehicle, I pay a little bit more attention. And well, did you had mentioned you had harsh acceleration and harsh braking here? Were
Yeah,
those things happening?
I don't see any that
Okay.
occurred on this particular drive. So you were way too easy on your media vehicle, and the next person to get it thanks you, but opportunity missed. Maybe
Well,
you take advantage before you give it back.
well, I was gonna say maybe. Okay, so that's I'm trying to think back. So this was yesterday, even at like or I'm sorry, not yesterday because I was at home working from home yesterday. So Tuesday, even at like
That's today.
that's okay, that's today. It would have been Wednesday morning, about 7:30, I guess, a.m. My drive to work. That was the first time where that was the first time where I was, I joke with my wife like new gas pedal when I have a heavy foot or something, but it really was, and it had a pretty good pickup a couple times where it kind of caught me by surprise compared to my vehicle, so I didn't know if I hit any.
Well, then, based on the thresholds of what we call acceleration, harsh acceleration, we didn't capture any
Oh,
events
okay,
here.
okay.
So, give it a little bit, goose it a little bit more on the way home
Yeah.
today, and we'll see what we capture.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
but some interesting things that kind of come up, certainly play into a fleet. This idling ends up being one that becomes fairly important.
Yep.
shift this over here to a satellite view, and you can
Oh
kind of
yeah.
get an
Okay.
idea
Yep.
of where you were. I don't know what Sharon Center Public Square is, but looks like you spent a minute and a half there.
Yep.
But that idle time, we actually have an algorithm in place that associates that with waste cost as well. And typically a minute of idle time will equate to about 3 cents a minute, depending on what the current fuel prices are. And so not a lot of money when you're sitting here for 4 minutes and 40 seconds.
Right.
However, when you think about a large amount of fleets or a large amount of vehicles in a large fleet, then you certainly will save a significant amount of cost if you can start to correct those driving behaviors that you see within the telematics tool.
Right, for sure. Yeah, I like how they put them right there on the map so you know where you were. So every time, so fun kind of behind the scenes stuff. Every time that I have an idling on this drive, it's me switching GoPro cameras on the on the vehicle. So I was pulled off. Those were just pull offs that I could kind of get out of the vehicle and start moving
Sure.
stuff around. So that's fun.
Yeah, excellent. So I love that you immediately know what you were doing and when.
Right.
But we can aggregate all this data too from across drivers to give some ideas of driver behavior. Um, Not really interesting for the particular fleet that I'm showing you because we didn't have a bunch of media vehicles moving around recently. But I can kind of walk you through some of the other tools that are available within telematics that certainly really help to drive efficiencies within the business, and some of the features that begin to start setting apart what a Ford Telematics is for our customers, if you'd
For
like.
sure. Yeah, let's do it.
So I'll just jump in here into the dashboard, and got this zoomed in pretty big for you here so you can see it on your screen. But
Yeah.
a fleet manager who logs in once a day has the ability to see what's going on in near real time. You have the summary of the fleet. In this case, it's our transit media fleet, so they're all transits, but you'd be able to see the various types of vehicles and dig into those if you wanted to see specific information. You can see if any of the vehicles have any immediate actions needed. And I mentioned that this is a pretty new fleet, so we don't have any maintenance coming due or any telematics signals that are coming off the vehicle
Right.
um, that would particularly need some immediate attention. Um, we show where they are in various geofences, and I'll show you some of that functionality in a minute, and how many of those have been keyed on in a given 24-hour period as well. And then we also provide seatbelt usage as well, both driver and passenger. And we give an update on the signal status, and you can see we have a number of our units that we've currently turned off the connectivity because they're not in use.
I see. I see. So on the seatbelt usage, would that? So I have the crew cab. Would that also count for the crew cab, or is that just passenger and driver?
It's just passenger and driver. So we
Okay.
take advantage of the sensors that are in the vehicle.
Right.
And, since government mandates seat belts in the driver and passenger seat, we have sensors associated with the seat belts. That's why you see the seatbelt unbuckled light and indicator on the dash.
Right.
And so we're picking up that signal and populating it here. Now, we
Right.
also, interesting to know, we know when the passenger vehicle is occupied based on the weight of the seat, which is also
Right.
a signal in the vehicle. And so we're looking to make sure that that seatbelt's clicked when that weight sensor is being used as well.
Right. Right. Very cool.
So here's your vehicle on the live map. I want to
Yep.
just bring up a couple other things here too, specifically when you talk about the equipment piece, which I know you do quite a bit of writing about as well.
Right.
The tags functionality within Tool really does help, locate the appropriate assets or types of vehicles. Obviously, we named your vehicle after Babcock's here, and I can
Right.
search. I started to search uh, by that vehicle name to quickly isolate it.
Right.
But the tag associated with that vehicle communications I could use as well. And
Right.
so if you think about a construction piece and a fleet of maybe boom trucks that you want to get to the appropriate job, then you can quickly find that particular uh, equipment based on tagging and dispatch the one closest to the address.
Yeah, for sure. Very cool.
So I showed you a little bit earlier. You can click in here and then see the route history of everywhere that vehicle has gone. But if you've noticed, we've got all these shapes here, which is why you see a green background. I'm gonna zoom back out. Those are geofences.
Okay.
So that we don't have a whole bunch of interesting ones set up here. In fact, it looks like someone was having a little fun just demoing what a geofence is and drew this giant triangle here. But obviously, incredibly important to a fleet is to be able to understand things like, when did the vehicle arrive at the job site, and by
Right.
geofencing particular areas, I can know when a vehicle arrived, when it left, um, and then let a customer know that a worker's arrived. Uh, Also, sometimes we do see that our fleet customers allow uh, their their employees to take a vehicle home in the evening, and but maybe their insurance doesn't allow them to utilize the vehicle after hours. So you can utilize that geofence functionality to get alerts if that vehicle were to leave after designated hours from that address.
Mhm.
And really easy to do. So I flipped it back over to the satellite view just so you can kind of get an idea of being able to geofence a location. I just click a couple geographic points here, and I begin to build a shape around what I believe you said is your workplace, right?
Right. Yeah. So when you get an alert at like 4:30, don't forward that one on. Right. So when I leave the area early.
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and let everyone know exactly when you left to work today, but
That's
probably not
great.
near as bad as the arrival time, right? So, uh,
Yeah, that's true too, I guess. I guess I don't need a document of that as well.
all right, we'll take it easy on you. I mean, come on, we took off speeding here. We don't need to.
That's right. I was a couple minutes. I was just testing the vehicle. I was still doing the job. Actually, you could start. I started at my house because I got in the vehicle and test drove it. So
Exactly right. So I could just enter a name here and then select a category or a category that I
oh
want,
yeah,
or create my own category and save that geofence. So pretty simple to do there, and just wanted to kind of show you that functionality.
yeah, very cool.
Any questions so far, Jason?
No, I don't think, it's fun. I mean, I'm making jokes, but what's funny to me, being on this end of it, right, and kind of going through the process, it's funny how much I feel like I have to justify when you see like we're going through and like, oh, here's a couple idling things, I instantly jump in with, well, here's what I was doing, right? It's like
Sure,
just a
absolutely.
funny feeling of like, well, I guess I want to put some context to this, just a data point. It's a weird feeling in some regard.
Well, I know that you and your media partners are all competitive, and so as I look at some of the drive-in behavior associated with your media ride so far, you would be rewarded for your safe driving. So,
Okay, good.
and that's a key point too, is as you think about how companies start to implement telematics, it's just as important that you reward those that are driving safely as it is to coach and counsel those that might need a little help making sure that they operate the vehicles in a more safe fashion. Because after all, outside of the people asset, the most expensive asset to most businesses are their vehicles or heavy equipment, and you want to make sure that the people assets are using those vehicle assets in an appropriate manner.
For sure, yeah, and the collaboration between the two, what I mean, like you had pointed out, coaching it through, right? Because I could see how this is very easily slipped into, I get, you're reviewing the data, I instantly am in a defensive position, right? Even though we're still jovial and this is still fun, I still feel that like, okay, here's what I was doing, right? So working through that relationship is definitely important.
Sure, and then the other aspect too is, fuel is typically the most expensive part of ownership outside of the vehicle itself, and
Right.
and as you talk about large groups of drivers, typically driving the same type of vehicle, you can start to identify, those that might be a little bit more heavy in the foot as well, and start to create efficiencies there, because you do get reporting on fuel usage, fuel consumption, miles per gallon, et cetera, as well in the tool, which is certainly valuable to any fleet. And these are, things that aren't necessarily unique to Ford Telematics, but as you start to get into the amount of signals that are available through the platform, you can quickly see how it benefits from a manufacturing knowing exactly what those signals mean.
Right.
And probably no better place than that is evident is in vehicle health.
Right.
And I'll show you this tool. I not a whole lot of interesting stuff to look at because of just the age of these vehicles. We do have the engine status of currently being off. Odometer reading, that's a real-time odometer reading that comes off the vehicle. When the engine's off, we capture the last known mileage. When the vehicle's moving, that will update. The oil life remaining is an algorithm built directly into the vehicle. That if you've ever noticed on the dash of a Ford that you're driving, it typically says, 25% oil life remaining. In this case of this particular one, it's 88%. That takes into account the engine temperatures, engine revolutions, the RPMs, and your particular driving behaviors to tell you when the appropriate best time is to change that oil. And so if you have a fleet that's typically changing the oil every 5,000 miles, this gives you a little bit of indicator that maybe you can let those oil changes go a little bit longer potentially and help drive some efficiencies in the fleet.
Okay.
We take engine hour readings, and then we allow you to set up your own custom intervals for time to service or distance to service. And then the issues piece, which I mentioned isn't populating here just because of there's no current issues, but with all those rich telematics signals on the vehicle that come from the built-in modem, which is a really important point, Jason, is we didn't have to install any type of aftermarket equipment for you to get this information. We just turned on the modem within the vehicle.
Right.
With the consent of the owner, we can activate those modems and start to give this rich intelligence to them. And that includes any of the maintenance indicator lights or warning indicator lights that come on into the dash. And so if you've got a driver who has a check engine light on, which is a pretty serious indicator of some type of failure, the fleet manager who has this telematics platform immediately knows that that vehicle needs some attention, as opposed to waiting on the driver to respond that there's something going on. And that would, if it was occurring on this particular vehicle, that would pop up with an issue. It'd move to the top of the list. You'd see that it had an action now indicator next to it. And then when you clicked on that check engine light, it would give you diagnostic codes and definitions of what's going on. And one thing that is unique, because we know our diagnostic codes so well, we do try to give you an indication of the severity of that event on whether it needs to be taken in immediately, downed and taken off the road, or if you can just address it on the next time that the vehicle comes into a dealership or into your own maintenance yard. And then I can book any of those issues to a given date and time or take a vehicle off the road. One thing that you may or may not have played with that I want to point out too is, as we launched Ford Telematics, we also launched it with an app that we call Drive. And you can see here vehicle inspections performed today. We don't have any that are coming through right now. I'm sure you didn't do your safety inspection before you left the house this morning.
I was never aware. I was not trained on my
Oh,
safety.
okay.
I don't have
Well,
the app here.
so
Oh, very cool.
the Drive app is available for vehicles associated with Ford Telematics,
Okay.
and there's a whole lot of benefits associated with it. One, it tells the fleet owner or the fleet manager who's driving the vehicle, and that's particularly important when you think about vehicles that rotate day to day and various drivers, or even like with law enforcement, who might have as many as 3 shifts and 3 drivers in a given day. Being
Right.
able to know who's behind the wheel becomes incredibly important. And because of various regulations, throughout the country, state by state, and even county and city by city, some large fleets are required to do for compliance reasons, do a safety inspection or a vehicle inspection every day to make sure that vehicle's road ready. And
Right.
we built that inspection into the Drive app so that you can click through, check any issues that could be going on with the vehicle, which immediately informs the fleet manager that vehicle either needs some attention, failed inspection, or is road ready. And if you think about drivers who take their fleet vehicles home during the evening, it might be a week before those safety inspections get turned back in, or sometimes even more. And that Drive app really does help to inform the fleet of the real-time road readiness of the vehicles that are currently being utilized in that day.
As you're working with customers here in maybe those light and medium duty vocational type applications, how do you see them utilizing this or being drawn to it? Do they see the immediate value there, or do you really have to guide them through the use cases of, okay, here's where you're going to see the benefits for using the data in your application rather than kind of a broad-based approach?
Yeah, I think it varies fleet by fleet, and that's a really good question, Jason. I appreciate it. So, and what I mean by that is, it seems like everyone's got their main hot button that needs to be addressed.
Right.
And when it comes to larger fleets that are, take like mining and natural resources as a very large industry that's typically operating off roads in some fairly dangerous environments. Safety checks and it become incredibly important along with driver behavior, and that might be their number one reason that they purchase. When you get into to law enforcement, location becomes incredibly important, as well as driver safety, and being able to know where your officer is and being able to dispatch becomes very, very important. When you're talking about your smaller fleets and your trades, a lot of times the owner is an operator, and he's one of those drivers driving those vehicles. And when the fleet was small, they had a pretty good understanding of where their employees were, and knew that when they were arriving at a job site. But as the fleet grows and that business grows and expands, and that fleet owner is still operating his own vehicle, now telematics becomes incredibly important, because I can go back at the end of the day. I can make sure that all my vehicles are ready for the next day. I can make sure that my drivers are taking care of their vehicles, that there's no major health issues that are associated with the vehicle that need to be addressed. And depending on that particular hot button, it becomes a lot more important, even for the smaller fleet. So this is not a product that's just for the large fleets, although there's certainly incredible benefits for the big companies.
Right.
As you drill down into the smaller trade and smaller fleets of even 5 vehicles, um, all of the information that's coming off the vehicle becomes incredibly important. We listen to what types of pain points our customers have, and we start to look at what hardware and what telematic signals are coming off the vehicle, that we might create an algorithm or put a feature within the product that would help address that particular issue.
Right.
And now you're really starting about specific use cases, by different industry or vertical, and into very specific customers in some cases. The vehicle creates so much data, and not only that, but the data that comes off the vehicle is very different from vehicle line by vehicle line. The F-150 creates different telematics signals than the Ford Fusion. And so we normalize all of that data up in the transportation and mobility cloud, and present it in a way that makes sense to the company that's ingesting that data back through an API. And so as the data goes up into the cloud, with consent of the fleet, we can now send that data to various different spaces. Of course, Ford Telematics, which is up on the screen, is one of those user interfaces that can ingest that data.
Right.
And we have quite a few customers and growing with this particular product. But we know that telematics switching cost is high. We know that other companies offer features that we do not. And if we're doing what's best for our customer, we're allowing them to ingest the data in a way that makes sense for them. And ultimately, our goal is to make sure that they're in love with their Ford product, that it's a great tool for them that they can use, now and down the road, and ultimately that they come back and buy another vehicle. And so by partnering with Samsara or a Geotab or a Verizon Connect, which are just a few of our TSP, telematics service provider partners, we allow the fleet to get the data through various different partners, so that they can choose the one that best fits their needs. And after all, our division's called Ford Commercial Solutions, so we're trying to help our customers find the best solution for them and their Fords. And sometimes that means it's through a different telematics service provider. And if that's what meets their needs, then we're happy to do it. In some cases, a fleet is large enough and has the IT infrastructure to be able to ingest that data directly and populate their own tools without a telematics service provider. So it really is all about the power of choice and being able to allow the customer to choose what's best for them. And then in the interim, we continue to listen to our customers, iterate our product, and create new features that drive market share for our own Ford Telematics platform. We're really just scratching the surface too. I mean, as we come out with more hybrids and more battery electric vehicles, the amount of telematics signals are going to just continue to increase dramatically. And being able to partner with Ford, who understands the vehicles, who built it, who understands the telematics signals, and actually engineered the telematics signals to help our commercial customers. This is going to only become more valuable in the future, and it's important to make sure that we're listening to our customers and co-creating with them to make sure that we've got the features that they need going forward.